Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. My name is Scott Linden. I'm your host, also the host of the television series Wing Shooting USA, where we talk all things bird dogs, bird hunting, and shooting sports. Anything that'll make you a better dog owner, bird hunter, or shotgun shooter. We're going to cover it right here. I appreciate your listening, and I hope you'll stick with us. We've got a big show in store for you. A couple things near and dear to my heart. As an old scoutmaster from way back, bringing kids into the fold is one of my priorities. We're going to debrief the mentor and the mentee from our recent NexGen youth hunt in South Dakota. You'll pick up a tip or two on how to get your own kids or your neighbor kids involved in the passion that we call upland hunting. We'll also be going back into the kennel in our Handle It segment, an extended version where I'll expound on my beliefs, my strengths, my beliefs in all things feeding when it comes to your dog. Before, during, and after the hunt, if you have some questions, I hope to address those. Of course, in addition, we'll have our Upland Index trivia question and a prize right after this from our sponsors. Thank you, Sage and Breaker, for your continued support. If you'd like to learn more about sageandbreaker.com, that's where you go. The highest quality gun care and gun cleaning products. Sign up now. It's almost Christmas if you want to put something on your own gift list or you're looking for a gift for a fellow shotgunner. The first crack at all of that stuff comes to the folks who are on the email list. So sign up now at sageandbreaker.com. And ESPAmerica.com is our hearing protection sponsor. Custom fit so they stay in your ear, whether you're in the field running around chasing after German wire-haired puppies or at the range. It's all at ESPAmerica.com. So here's our first remote broadcast. We're in the Grand Ciel Lodge near Plankinton, South Dakota, where we just completed an episode of Wing Shooting USA. Our NexGen youth shooting contest winners are here with us, Bruce MacArthur and Ben Stuka. Now, Bruce, this is an interesting day for all of us because you are kind of the poster boy for mentoring young shooters / hunters. Why don't you give me kind of the backstory on that?
Well, Ben is a neighbor across the street from me, and we have spent some time shooting sporting clays, and I wanted to bring him out, show him some of the things that we do and some of my interests. He's always been very interested in the outdoor activities. He always brings his friends over to see the birds that I have mounted or anything like that I have in my game room. And so I just thought that this should be the next step, that Ben should be able to see. We go out and shoot. He enjoys that immensely, and he's actually a very good shot for just starting off. And I wanted to see the next step. I wanted to bring him into what I do, what my passion is, and for him to experience it.
Do you see it as a logical extension? And the reason it's a trick question because I believe that this is the right way to do it. We learn how to handle a firearm safely. We learn how to become skillful at operating it. And we break clay targets until we get tired of breaking clay targets. And then we go out and we get to watch dogs play in a beautiful place like Grand Ciel Lodge. And did you see the same logical progression?
Oh, yes. I knew that he was shooting sporting clays, doing quite well. The next step to become a bird hunter was to actually be out someplace and have the opportunity to hunt. I never got that as a child, and I wanted to be able to have that. It was important to me that Ben was able to experience some things that I never got, but the only way we can bring new hunters into this is to bring kids in early. I mean, I go hunting all the time, and I don't see any young people there. For conservation, for wildlife, if we don't bring the youth into this, there won't be any. If our generation ends, there won't be any of that afterwards. Mm-hmm. It's not only the hunting, but it's all of our hunting taxes and everything are associated with conserving wildlife. Mm-hmm. Who's going to do that if it ends with our generation?
Well, amen to that, and it's absolutely true. So hand that mic over to Ben because, Ben, again, you are the the other poster boy in this little scenario, because you are the perfect candidate. You've done all the things that we want you to do, and then you've come to a wonderful lodge, and you've had a first pheasant hunt experience that I think turned out okay. Tell me all about it.
Well, coming into this, I really had no idea what to really expect. And as soon as we got out there, saw the dogs work, and started seeing those first couple pheasants fly up, it just started flying. Time flew by. It was truly something amazing. It was really fun.
What was the highlight of the day for you?
Probably going on by myself and shooting those two with the 2 pointers, just me and them. It was really cool. I just got so tunnel visioned, just ready to go and ready to shoot those pheasants.
Now you play baseball in high school. Do you see any parallels between the two sports?
Just hand-eye coordination. Just
yeah.
Being able to put a target on a bird or clay, or same thing with throwing a ball or hitting the ball with a bat or anything like that.
What was the biggest challenge you faced on your first pheasant hunt?
Probably seeing like the way they fly. So they come up and just trying to predict where they fly, where they're going to go. Because with sporting clay, you know exactly where they are. But yeah, definitely the hardest part was trying to figure out where they're going to fly, making sure you don't shoot a person or a dog, and that was always in my head. But it wasn't too bad. I got used to it after a couple.
Well, Bruce, you were diligent for a long time about teaching the fundamentals of shooting, including safety. What advice would you have for somebody else maybe who wants to do the same thing you're doing in terms of mentoring a young shooter/hunter? How do you start? I mean, how do you make an introduction to that? Do you just sense it or what?
Well, with Ben, it was because he saw the interest in what I did for my passion. He saw when he would bring his friends over to see my game room and see the animals there, that I knew that he had an interest in that, and it wasn't bothersome to him. And he would ask me questions about where you're going, what am I doing, how's the dog working. He had the interest from the very beginning. And so the next step was to get gun safety, making sure that he could shoot and be. I mean, if you go to someplace to hunt and you can't hit a bird, you're never going to return. So we started shooting sporting clays, and because of his baseball instincts and his hand-to-eye coordination, I was amazed at how well he did. And so we enjoyed doing that for the last year, and thanks to you, this was the next perfect step. So without you and this contest and getting this opportunity, we wouldn't have had this chance, and we greatly appreciate this opportunity.
I'm glad to do it. It's a mission of mine, and much like your background, it's something that hits near and dear to the heart for me as it does for you. We won't bore anybody with the details about that, but there is a way to do this. And when I was working with the Boy Scouts, they used the term aspirational a lot. We're not forcing people to proceed down a path they don't want to proceed down, but we're opening the doors that might lead to interest. So Ben, for you, how'd the light bulb go off over your head? What was it about dealing with Bruce and your relationship and what you saw or heard or felt that got you interested enough to come out here to South Dakota?
Honestly, I really wanted to experience my first time coming out and hunting, and also just wanted to get into the whole getting into hunting and being able to just go out in there and do something. Like I was tired of looking at the stuffed animals and everything. I was like, I want to go do that. I want to see what I could do.
And did you do it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yep. So what are you going to tell your friends? You go back to school on Thursday. If you had to boil it down to 25 words or less, what are you going to tell your friends you did on Tuesday?
Went out, watched some dogs work, and didn't miss when the pheasant flew up. So that's pretty much all I'm going to tell them. I'm not going to tell them when I fell into that hole or missed a couple shots, but they don't need to know that.
Well, everybody misses sometimes. Nobody bats 1,000. You know that.
Yeah.
So, if you were to tell your friends, if you were to try and recruit some of your friends to join us in the sport of upland bird hunting, how would you make that pitch to them?
Well, it's not for everyone. I'm gonna say that, but man, it's something it's exciting. It's quick, exciting, and it's kind of a feeling you wouldn't understand if you never came out here. Mm-hmm. So I personally had no idea what I was getting into, and once I was coming out here, started getting into it, it was amazing. It's just adrenaline, everything. It was fun.
Well, I agree, and Bruce knows it too, because Bruce has a pointing dog, Wisla, and that's how I got involved in the hunting world. What was it about the dogs that was just so interesting to you?
Just seeing them go back and forth, and the handler like just calling them every so often. They'd be so disciplined, and just seeing them, and then they would just stop, wait for us to come up, and then they just keep going on with their business.
Yeah,
doing that. That's really cool.
Bruce, as a dog handler, you've seen a number of dogs in the field, and you have your own, and have for many years. Do you still get the same rush that you got with your first dog?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about the dog work. It's not about the hunt. It's not about how many quail or pheasants or grouse or anything else that I bring home. It's about watching the dog. I'm happy to have, now that I know that Ben can do this, I'm gonna be taking him out with me to the quail fields some more, so that he can see and experience what I do, and to work with the dog, to see just how much the dog loves to be out there and cherishes that time, and to be able to see that working. I mean, I don't even care if I kill a bird. It's the dog work that's fantastic.
And speaking of dogs, here comes one of them now. This one we didn't get to work with today, but that's okay, because we had a lot of chances to work with some spectacular Braque Français, several different dogs from the kennel here, Grand Ciel, which, if you don't speak French, like me, means big sky. Even though we're in South Dakota, they do have a big sky, and we got lucky with it today, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Oh, man.
Yes, we had great weather.
It rained yesterday. It's going to rain tomorrow, but the one day we're shooting a TV show, got blue sky, puffy clouds, and, hey, even the wind laid down. You know, I want to ask you, Ben, because you're brand new to all of this, and you're a very lucky guy, and I keep drumming that into you because many people don't ever have the chance to experience all of this. But in terms of preparation, mental preparation for this trip, besides learning how to shoot safely, is there anything else that you were doing up in your head, like when you prepare for a baseball game or something like that? Did you do anything like that for the hunting trip?
Going into it, like just going out into the field, just walking, I was just calming myself down. Don't like, once you see it, don't get like, just calm yourself down and make sure you don't overthink it, because if you overthink it, then you're gonna miss. You're gonna do something stupid. So you just calm down, just do what you were trained to do, and you'll be fine.
You know, we have a term in the shooting world called instinctive shooting, where you do exactly that. At some point, it's all organic as opposed to planned out, and I think you finally got into that zone as the day went on. And I'll tell you, for a guy who's never hunted before, to hunt in front of 2 television cameras and a gallery of 3 or 4 other judgmental hunters and dog handlers, you had a lot of poise, and I attribute a lot of that to baseball and your upbringing and your personality as a human being in general. Is there anything in particular that you want to go back and start working on now that you've had a day in the field and missed a bird or 2 and saw how the whole game works? What are you going to practice?
Making sure the safety's off. There's a couple of times where I went up, I was ready, and then I'd put the gun on the bird, and then I'd pull the trigger real quick. I'm like, oh God, look it up. I have to. Yeah, but that's everything I was prepared prepared for, like getting ready. I wasn't hesitating shots. I wasn't flinching towards them.
Yeah, yeah.
I felt good with that, but just the only thing was that safety, because I've never done that before. It was just weird.
Yeah, it is, and that is one of the differences, of course, between shooting at clay targets, where you have all the time in the world and you can move that when you want, instead of when the bird tells you to.
Yep.
Bruce, you hunted all over the world. You just came back from Bolivia, where you were shooting pigeons and doves. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
I can't go without asking you about that and some of your other trips. Why do you go to all those exotic places to hunt birds?
Well,
among other things.
Well, yeah, bird hunting is my passion. It has been for a long time, and I do other hunts occasionally. And in fact, in the first of December 8th, I'm going to be in Nicaragua duck hunting. So I like going to different places. I like seeing different species. Different opportunities to hunt different game. They're all challenging. I mean, the adrenaline rush is, for me, is every every hunt with a different species. It's never, you can't get over it. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing. It's hard to, well, it's hard. You get this way with each time, with each game, and with each animal. It's an opportunity to take different species in different parts of the world and see different cultures and mix with different people. I try to make a vacation out of it as well. It's just not all about the hunt, though that's a good portion of it, and it's the reason I go. But it gives me an opportunity to meet different people, experience different cultures, and to be in different parts of the world.
You know, I've not done much of that, but I get all of the same things when I go to a different state, to a different county, when I'm hunting with people I've not met before. We don't have to cross an international border to get that, do we?
No, we don't. I mean, just between Florida and here, it's tremendously different. But you know what's always the same is the people are always nice and respectful and accommodating, especially here at this lodge.
And of course, most people in our world are, and you got to wonder what that's all about. Maybe you can give us an insight as an outsider who's now inside. Ben, what is it about the hunting experience you've had that leads most of us to think hunters are pretty good guys to be around?
Oh yeah, of course. Everyone's just safe.
Mm-hmm.
Safety is number one. And everyone just wants to have a good time. Just want to go get something.
Mm-hmm.
Not out there being dumb, reckless.
You mean like being in high school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing that. Yep.
Yeah. Well, this is. I mean, this is a. I mean, you can tell a lot of your friends that you went hunting, but there are some maybe you won't tell.
Oh, yes.
Do you have some of those friends?
Yeah, some of those friends.
And we don't need to go deep into the weeds on this one, but I'm just curious. Why do you think they would have an issue with that?
Because it would be like, oh, you're killing a bird, or you're killing this
while they're eating their cheeseburger.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But your parents were supportive.
Yep.
They had to sign a whole bunch of paperwork to get you here, and we appreciate that. Do you see this in your future? You want to recruit somebody else, help them out the way Bruce has helped you?
Of course. This is a lot of fun. Big part I see in my future.
Yeah. You think you'll go hunting again?
Of course.
Yeah. And maybe later this season. Well, if you were going to tell your friends at school why they might want to try upland bird hunting after they've prepared themselves appropriately, how would you tell them that? What wording, what phraseology would you use?
Honestly, I just go out and try it.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't know unless you try, because you could have a million reasons not to do something, and if you just go out and do it, hey, I might like this.
Keep open mind, the whole bit.
Yep.
And do you think any of your friends know what we do? All of those pheasants are now being prepared for us to take home and eat. You knew that because he's a good teacher right there. That's Bruce on my left. You're right as you're listening to a stereo speaker system. But But do you think there are others out there who maybe have some misconceptions about hunting in general?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
They probably just think shoot them and put them up on the wall.
Yeah.
I think we eat most of the stuff that we shoot. But other than that, it's not really too much that people wouldn't expect.
Yeah. Well, Bruce, let's close out the segment with some thoughts from you on how other adults can mentor young people into the outdoors world, and specifically in our case, the upland bird hunting world. Any advice for those people?
Well, they need to. They don't have to go out and buy a dog. They don't have to go out and spend buy a bunch of expensive equipment. They need just to get outside. They need to find somebody like myself who was willing to take somebody out. I mean, or they needed to go sign up to become a member at a preserve or another outfitter or something like that. Go on a hunt with somebody. Usually, I started out by paying a guide to take me until I learned the basics and what I needed to do, and I saw the dog work. And after that, I had to have my own dog, and that's how it all started for me. I mean, I had no one to bring me up to the sport. I went on a pheasant hunt once that wasn't like this with all the dog work, and I saw that, and I got really excited about it, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to be a part of the sporting world and the outdoor world. And so I took it one step at a time. I read a lot of books, including yours, and
Thank you.
I just fell into it. But there's plenty of opportunities to via conservation club, safari club, or Ducks Unlimited, or any of those other clubs, to find someone to help you push you in the right direction. There's plenty of people that are willing to do that if you're willing to reach out to them.
So a mentor could find a mentor and then mentor somebody else. What about for people like us who are already avid participants? What would you do to nudge them towards finding somebody, not a relative, not their own child, that they might be able to help in some way?
Well, with like Ben, he showed an interest. He was available. It was easy. He was across the street. He showed an interest in this, and I was glad that I could be there for him to help push him in that right direction. And it just takes somebody in your neighborhood or somebody that you know, or maybe even go to the Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts and discuss what you do and how you do it. And maybe you can find other people that are willing or interested in pursuing the same thing.
You know, again, I'm going back to my own experience, and I think probably your experience to a degree, and then certainly your experience helping Ben come into our world. It's that situational awareness of a potential mentee, and I hate to use that word, but I don't know what else. Somebody's out there who does perhaps express an interest. We got to be looking for that, and it may be different with each person, but just keeping our eyes and ears open for a level of interest that's above average in that regard. And then how do you get maybe a reluctant parent or two to buy into that as well? I mean, does that take a lot of psychology? Ben, did you have to sell your parents on this whole idea?
Not really. I mean, they really had nothing against it.
Yeah.
They just wanted to see me have a fun time and just go try something new.
You got great folks, I'll tell you. That's the way to do it, and it seems to work. Well, our time here is about done. We've actually covered more in one really long segment than two short ones, which is okay by me. Any last minute advice for a young person or a potential mentor that you might suggest to any of our listeners who are, for the most part, potential mentors? Ben, what would you ask them to look for in somebody like you?
To look for, just with any little interest. If someone has any, like, hey, that looks cool, or hey, why do you do this, or how do you do that? Just try to see what they would do, how they would act, try to get them into it, because that could go down a rabbit hole and they could sooner or later be in the same place you would be.
Great. Bruce, how about you? Final remarks?
Well, your show and your contest was very much help us move to the next step. Now I'll be taking Ben quail hunting later in the season as it cools off, if it ever cools off in Florida. But it's just finding it's difficult to find people that want to do stuff, because most kids and teens, all they're interested in doing is playing on their phone or playing video games. And I mean, I don't know where I would even look for somebody that has an interest. So there's other people out there that have the same interests that I do, but where do I search for them? Where do I find them? Mm-hmm. I don't know. So I don't really know how to proceed to get the message pushed out. I mean, your show is grateful and helpful for that, and I recommend most of my people that I know that they should see it, and if they have interest, then let me know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a two-edged sword. It's hard to find somebody who wants to join us or experiment with it, and then it's hard to find somebody who's willing to take them on. It really is. But out there somewhere is a match for everybody, and it's a matter of awareness to a great degree. Now, of course, this contest, which brought you two here with us to South Dakota and Grand Ciel Lodge, we worked with an organization called Pass It On Outdoor Mentors. That's a good place to start, because that is exactly what they do. They make those matches all the time. So anybody out there listening who wants to learn more, Google Pass It On Outdoor Mentors or come to my website, and I'll be happy to help you there. It is another way to formally do that if you just don't have somebody across the street. Guys, it's been fun. You were safe, you were productive, and everybody had a good time. Thanks for joining us on the Upland Nation podcast.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that and you took something away from it that you can use in your neighborhood, in your own home, or maybe with one of those kids on your Little League team. Stick around. We've got lots more, including our Handle It segment, which is all about the care and feeding of your dog throughout the season, and particularly throughout a hunting day. I'll be giving you all of my thoughts and asking a few questions at the same time. So don't go away as we listen to this commercial message from our friends at espamerica.com. I was at the Grand Ciel Lodge, as you just heard, with our friends Ben, Bruce, Corey, and Brad, among others. Don't forget Tad and Lynn, my camera operators. Anyway, we were all there, and I looked around the field at one point, and starting with Dave Miller, our shotgun world record holder, on down the line to everybody, including 16-year-old Ben, everybody in the field was wearing electronic hearing protection. Now, what does that say about the whole concept? It says, number one, they're as convenient and as comfortable as going without. And number two, everybody there, hello, is going to be able to carry on a conversation long into the future. If you'd like to learn more about hearing protection and how ESP America does it, go to espamerica.com. All right, if you follow my social media, you know that taking care of my dogs in the field, before a hunt, during a hunt, after a hunt, is kind of an obsession, and I apologize for that. But, you know, I feel so strongly about some of this stuff. And I see so many people doing it differently than me, and I'm not judging you, but they're doing it differently than me, that I just want to share my thoughts and my rationale on how I do all this stuff, and out of it, maybe you'll pick up a tip or two. I know it worked with my friend Ben. We were recently on a chucker hunt in, well, I'll just call it Oregon's Outback, because I'm not going to give you the latitude and the longitude. But I remember during our training sessions over the summer talking a lot about what we should do on the day of a hunt and why, and I'll get to that. I certainly will, I promise you that, because it sure paid off for his 1.5-year-old and for my 2-year-old German dogs in the field, where Callie ran a couple 3 miles, but as a 12-year-old, that's good for her. But once she was put up, it was all about Bernie and my dog Flick, and over the course of one weekend, each of them put in over 45 miles. And that's in chucker country. My feet hurt just talking about it. Anyway, all right, let's talk about diet and feeding and all the stuff that you should put into your dog's mouth and when. Starting with preseason. So you're in the middle of the summer and you're worried about next fall and what you're going to be doing and whether your dogs are going to hold up. You've got to get them into condition. I'm not going to dwell a lot on the conditioning aspect of it. Everybody has their own thoughts on how that works and why it works. But you really do have to run your dog. There are a number of ways you can do it. Some people call it roading, some people don't. There's the free running. You can attach login chains to your dog's harness. You can put them next to your side-by-side. All of those things work. But whatever you're doing, do it frequently. Once a week is not enough. I used the analogy on a recent chucker hunt when somebody asked me, well, in between weekend hunts, should I be exercising my dog? And I thought, well, here's one way to think about it. If you were a marathon runner, would you wait in between marathons to train? I doubt it. Well, our dogs are marathon runners. They are elite athletes in their own way. We probably need to worry about their training and conditioning every day, all year, and maybe ramp it up as the season approaches. Okay, enough about that. Let's talk about fueling our dogs for the field. The first thing you got to do is settle the argument, and I'll leave that between you and your veterinarian. Any two dog owners will probably offer 3 opinions on the subject of what kind of dog food and why. Ingredients, formulas, additives, everything from protein sources to wheat or no wheat, corn or no corn. Well, I'm not going to solve that for anybody. Talk to your veterinarian and monitor your dog's waistline and weight and condition before you start making changes. Then make changes that are sound and strategic based on, what you want out of your dog. If you're looking for some general guidelines on feeding a dog, they need plenty of protein. Most of the high-quality, high-end dog foods are going to have about 30% protein in their guaranteed analysis. And that's about right, unless you have a very special dog. And I've had a few that I've fed up to 42% protein, but most of the time, in the wirehair breed at least, that'll lead to weight gain. And that's probably not a good idea for a number of reasons. I'm doctoring Flix pads right now because after 45 or 50 miles in the field, he's just got so much stress on those pads, but a lighter dog will put less stress. On the fat side, 20 to 22% is about what most of those high-quality foods will have in them, and that's good for a number of reasons. The first is that it's critical for energy. Dogs use fat in the same way we do carbohydrates. And I'll talk more about that as we get on. So if you're thinking about deviating too far from those ratios, you probably ought to consider it carefully and then have a discussion with your vet. And please remember, everybody online has their own opinion, but talk to a professional or two before you make any radical changes. Now, my good friend Larry Mueller, who used to be the dog editor at Outdoor Life magazine, had a thought that I think is worth sharing. You decide whether you want to do it or not. If you are going to ramp up your dog's fat and protein intake pre-season, start the good stuff at least 60 days prior to the first hunt. That'll give all the muscles, all the skin, all the bones, all the joints time to process and metabolize all the nutrients that you're adding to that dog. 60 days ahead of time. Good protein sources? Well, I learned something a few months ago that I hadn't realized. Those dog food varieties that have meal in them, meat meal of one sort or another, whether it's fresh meat or fresh poultry or even fish, meal is simply mushed up, ground up meat. It's not anything bad. In fact, a lot of folks will suggest that meal is better than the meat itself. I get it, but you explore that option. Real meat, fish, eggs are really good for your dog, so look at those on the ingredient list. If you see something like byproducts of any sort, bone meal, too much corn gluten, or other grain products, those are usually a trick to amp up the protein ratio without giving you near the digestible protein that your dog really needs. And if you haven't heard it before, think about your dog's ear infections, rashes, or constant scratching, even coat quality. All of those are often affected, now not the only reason, but they're often affected by your dog's diet, especially the ear infection side. Sometimes you can change a dog's formulation for the dog food, change the protein source, move the grain source to another category or whatever, and see that ear infection or even a rash go away. Now you want to consult with your veterinarian again. I know I'm going to keep telling you that. I should probably have a veterinarian as a sponsor with all the direction I'm giving you that way. But the point is, before you do anything radical on behalf of your dog, when it comes to intake, well, of course, all those other things like porcupine quills, you might want to just take a moment and call your veterinarian. Okay, let's start the day. We're out in the field. We're about ready to go. We're up. The dogs are up. I've gulped down a cup of coffee, and it's time to feed the dogs. Or is it? Well, I don't think so. And I'll tell you, if you talk to enough folks about this, you'll learn the story of gastrovolvulus. Some people call it bloat. Some people call it stomach twist. Whatever you want to call it, there's a risk there. Think about this. Try an experiment. Take off your sock. Take out of your pocket your car keys. Drop the car keys into your sock. Now, if you hold that sock in your right hand and your left hand, at the bottom where the heel is where that car key will go because it's heavy. Just like dog food. That's the belly of the dog. If you jiggle it, swing it back and forth, whip it around a little like a dog jumping a fence or two or going over a boulder or whatever, I can almost guarantee you the heel of that sock with the so-called food, the ersatz food of car keys, is going to twist. When that happens, your dog is in life-threatening trouble. Now, if you didn't feed that morning, the first thing he's going to do when you drop the tailgate is empty out all the feed you gave him last night, and then he's got an empty GI tract for the whole hunting day. In addition to preventing, or at least in many cases preventing, stomach twist, because the jury's still out on that, but I'm not taking any chances. About 50-50 both ways. Anyway, if you don't have a full GI tract, then the other good thing that happens is the dog's body does not have to process any new food, devoting blood supply and other aspects of a metabolism to processing that food. All of that excess energy can go toward running around and looking for birds. The folks at Purina are among many who have done the research and also figured out that a dog that has an empty stomach and an empty GI tract will hunt longer, will be more agile in the field. Here's the example I use quite often. If you are going to run a marathon, you're not going to eat a whole pizza before you go. Maybe you are. Actually, I'm going to have one the moment I cross the finish line, if I cross the finish line. But if you want your dog to perform at his peak, don't feed in the morning. Okay, I understand. You, like many, fear that your dog will acquire what's called low blood sugar in human beings. Yeah, there's a slight risk of that, but if you fed that dog well the night before, in one day in the field, if that dog is in condition and all of the weather, temperature, and other factors are equal, very little chance. And if your dog does have what they call hunting dog hypoglycemia, then you need to talk to a veterinarian anyway, because that is something that you can certainly avoid in many cases by being careful about the kind of supplements you use in the field. In my case, I don't worry about that as much as I worry about the stomach twist and the slowing down of my dog's abilities. So I am going to carry something that has high fat and very low volume. You've probably heard about my Crunch Pemmican Dog Energy Bar, but there are other things out there with a lot of fat in them. and very little volume. And that is the key. Might be the greasiest corned beef sandwich you're carrying for your own lunch, but whatever it is, high fat, low volume. You can't go wrong with offering water. Water is another essential nutrient. In addition to keeping a dog cool and hydrated, it facilitates blood flow to the muscles where it replenishes red cells and maximizes your dog's stamina. If you watch a great runner in the field running 26 miles or even less, you'll see how often they're taking in fluids. Well, there's a reason for that. You want to make life simple on yourself and on your dog? Teach that dog to do what Flick does, and every one of my wire hairs has, and luckily almost every other dog that I meet in the field. Drink from a Bota bag, or the modern equivalent, a Camelback with a squeeze valve or something like that. That way you can drink from that water source, so can your dog. You don't need to drag a bowl or sacrifice your hat. And it also forces you to carry enough dang water. Last weekend I had 140 milliliters in the back of my pack, and it was almost enough. Luckily, on the way back to the truck, we found some water sources, but that's one way I now judge when it's time to kind of cut back on the hunting and head for the truck. All right, so you got an exhausted dog. Did a great day in the field, maybe found some birds, maybe you shot better than me and you put some in your bag. That dog is tired, that dog is thirsty, that dog is hungry by now. Don't feed them. Give them plenty of water mixed with one or another versions of the glycogen replacing products out there. Some folks use some of the stuff they can buy from weightlifters, online sources. Go down to the health food store. They'll have something with maltodextrin in it, and that's the key, maltodextrin. Here's the reason. Maltodextrin is the raw materials that help the dog's body make up a substance called glycogen. It's a carbohydrate, and it is the building block of cell walls, particularly dogs' muscle cells. You want that dog's muscle to recover for another hunt the next day? Well, the right application and quantity of a glycogen substitute or a glycogen replacement, like the brand name Glycocharge, which is liver flavored. I'll take my dog's word on that because I've never tasted it, but it sure smells like it. That will help your dog's muscles recover to about a 95% recovery rate overnight. Here's the key. You must do it right. Immediately after your dog is done hunting, and you put him up and you put him in his box because you've checked his eyes, you checked his feet, you checked his coat, then give him water mixed with that maltodextrin. See the package directions and make sure you're given the right amount at the right time, but usually it's immediately after the hunt. Let that dog have plenty. Be careful about stomach twist, but let your dog have a good long drink and then settle him down. Wait 90 minutes before you feed that dog. The principal reason, he'll metabolize all of that maltodextrin. Second, if you've added it to the food, you run the risk of the fat in the dog food inhibiting the uptake of the nutrients in the maltodextrin solution. So wait until that water is all processed, then deliver that food. Now, if your dog will eat, add as much as you can and let him eat to his heart's content. Now, there's simply a physical barrier there as to how much capacity his belly will have. So when that happens, of course, take away the food. Feed his regular food and maybe a little bit more fat supplement of one sort or another. I like coconut oil myself, but some folks will use butter. Some people will use olive oil or canola oil or even beef fat. But get a little bit of extra into there. Be careful about how much. It's a real jolt to the system if the dog is not used to it. But add a little fat. Now, because there is this physical limitation, the capacity of the dog's stomach, I'll also give a dog a little bit more food right before I put him to bed for the night. That'll make up for some of the caloric loss from skipping breakfast, and it'll give that dog a good 8 hours to process a bellyful, and then in the morning, the first thing he's going to do is empty out the leftovers, and he's ready to go without that extra baggage that comes from too much food in the gastrointestinal tract. There's one other thing that I want to editorialize on for a moment, because I see it day after day. We were in a place over the weekend with temperatures going down into the teens, and folks are still leaving their dogs in a plastic dog crate in the back of a pickup and thinking that dog is just fine. Well, he'll survive, no doubt about it, but would you want to hunt the next day and do your best? I doubt it. So please bring your dog's crate into the hotel room, or at least into the camper with you. And if you can't do that for some reason, make sure he's bedded down in a warm crate that has a good cover on it and a thick, soft mattress or plenty of grass hay that prevent the bones and joints from contact with hard surfaces. Again, how would you hunt if you slept on the cold plastic floor the whole night before? Your dog wants to do his best for you, and that's one way to say thank you in advance. All right, so back to the marathon runner analogy, because we can almost all relate to that, not because we've run a marathon, but because we've seen people do it, so we're all experts. Just kidding. Unlike humans, we really can't carbo load for our dog. The first thing to remember is dogs don't process carbohydrates the same way. Number two, it's not how they get their energy, unlike us. Number three, a high carbohydrate diet, especially a shocking one to a dog who's not used to it, is a condition called exertional rhabdomyolysis. I'm not going to say it twice, look it up. Some of the old timers call it tying up. It causes muscle pain and cramping, all sorts of digestional upset, and, ironically, dehydration. Stick with your dog food. It's complete and balanced. Maybe a little bit of cheeseburger here or there, no onions, and you won't have that problem. If you're going to carbo load your dog with fat instead. All of those things will lead to a dog that has a lot of energy, is conditioned well for the long, season-long obligations he has to you, will keep him functioning well on a day-to-day basis, and will keep him safe from all of those things that you read about, you hear about, you see on Facebook and everywhere else. Thank you for letting me sit on my soapbox. Have a safe season and good luck. You know, if you have questions about this kind of stuff, let me just remind you one more time. I'm glad to answer them, whether it's at the Facebook page or at scottlindonoutdoors@gmail.com. So let's talk. All right, and now a quick message. Speaking of dog performance, from my friends at Dogtra. Dogtra.com is where you learn more about all their great products. Free shipping on any purchase over $200 and 10% more off the purchase price if you use my code SLUN10. It's all at Dogtra.com. As you know, I am enamored with their new T&B dual collar transmitter system. One of the many reasons, and this is fun because as we came off the breakfast train, if you will, at the Grand Ciel Lodge, I realized that Corey, one of the trainers, the trainer over there, was sporting the same transmitter that I was. 2 sets of buttons, so no toggling back and forth. Functioned perfectly for the 2 Braque Francais we were working with in the morning at Grand Ciel Lodge. Doctor had just been out there for a photo shoot, and he got to keep the transmitter and the 2 collars and was putting it to use already, and there's good reason for it. He got 2 dogs in the field, and one's creeping and one's not. You don't want to have to find the right dog on the right button for that. You hit some with your thumb, some with your fingers. You've got them all at your disposal the whole time. Learn more about the T&B Dual and all the Dogtra products at dogtra.com. And remember, 10% off with the code SLUN10. You know, this land is your land. It's my land, and it's all of our land, and some of it we have public access to that you may not know about, and that's my goal here in this segment of the podcast. The Upland Nation podcast is now taking you south of Mitchell, South Dakota. I was out there doing some field research. Yeah, that's what I'll call it. There's 6 to 8 patches of walk-in property right south of that town on Highway 37. You cannot miss them. If you've never hunted South Dakota, the first thing you need to do when you get into the state is pick up one of their hunting atlases. Find the pages for the area you're visiting and look for all the different colored patches that are out there. There's, like I said, a bunch of them just south of Mitchell on Highway 37. Go out of the Cabela's store, turn right again, and you're headed south. They're all pretty well marked, but it does help to have the maps that come in the hunting atlas. This year, plenty of pheasants. They're wild and woolly, that's for sure. And it's a little bit wet out there, so wear your high boots and be careful where you walk. I was over my knees in a few spots. But that's South Dakota. That's this year in South Dakota. The best part about South Dakota is some of those publicly accessible properties are full of great habitat, everything from shelter belts to CRP, food plots, cattails, a lot of cattails this year. So be ready for wet, be ready for challenging, wily birds that haven't seen a lot of people, and choke your gun down a little bit just in case you're taking shots at 40 or 50 yards. Be safe out there and enjoy yourself. Speaking of enjoying, welcome TagSafari.com to our sponsor list. Tag Safari has been around for a long time, into the early 90s, outfitting folks for, well, safaris. Now they're into the upland world as well. They've got new upland gear, upland hats. Yeah, I know, I'm a fanatic, and I'm going to get another one from them very soon. Can't wait for it to be delivered. A bird vest on sale now, starting at $37, and for $37 you cannot go wrong. This is all material that starts as African cotton, is hand-loomed, hand-assembled, hand-packaged in local packaging, and then shipped right to you. That's the best news, but there's more. Use the code TAGLinden15 for 15% off any purchase. Tag Linden 15 for any purchase from TagSafari.com. Take a look at their upland gear, some of their new hats. Take a look at that bird vest on sale for $37. You cannot go wrong. Speaking of going wrong, you will not if you've got a Dogtra T&B dual collar system. You will never have to flip back and forth or toggle from screen to screen or find another switch somewhere. You can control 2 dogs at one time with the T&B Dual. Don't forget 10% off. Use the code SLUN10 at dogtra.com. Getting towards the end of the podcast. Thanks for listening to the Upland Nation. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, you know where to go. ScottLindenOutdoors@gmail.com. If you have any answers to this upland trivia question, you also go there too. Here's the question, the prize. Hey, talking about food and energy, I'm going to send you a dog energy bar from my personal stash. Here's the question. When it comes to shotguns, what does the word cast signify? Cast, shotguns. Send your email answer to ScottLindenOutdoors@gmail.com. I sure thank you for your kind attention. I hope I haven't wasted any of your time. I hope I piqued your curiosity and maybe helped you in one way or another, or helped your dog, or helped your hunting strategy, or all of the above. If so, tell your friends. If not, tell me at ScottLindenOutdoors@gmail.com, and I'll see what I can do to help. You can always update yourself at the Upland Nation Facebook page or at the Wing Shooting USA Facebook page. And you can download, leave your comments, and tell your friends how nice it is to have a podcast that doesn't waste your time or insult your intelligence. All of that happens at uplandnation.com or wherever you get your podcast.